Israel has won major concessions from Hamas in ceasefire negotiations. According to the Wall Street Journal, for the first time, the terror group says it will agree to a deal allowing Israeli troops to temporarily remain in Gaza. It's also turned over a list of hostages, including Americans, it will release in the deal. In Washington, the U.S. House of Representatives approved hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid to Israel. The House passed on Wednesday the annual defense spending bill. It reportedly includes $500 million for U.S.-Israel missile defense programs like the Iron Dome. Well, just days after the fall of the Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria, the region is adjusting to the new realities on the ground. But one area on the border with Turkey could be ground zero for a battle between Western values and Islamic ambitions. CBN's Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
While the leader of the main faction of Syria's rebel forces is pledging no new war, a democratic enclave in Northeast Syria that's home to Kurds, Yazidis, and Christians is being attacked by a proxy army of Turkey. CBN News spoke with a Christian from Northeast Syria by phone. To protect his identity, we've disguised his voice and can't show his face. We're calling him Gabriel.
So, yeah, we are under attack, and we don't think that Erdogan and his proxies are going to stop in this place in the north.
The autonomous administration in Northeast Syria is unique in all of the Middle East. CBN News reported on this new government back in this 2019 report.
It's completely new in the Middle East, and I'd say it's completely new in the whole world.
Freelance journalist Carlos Zurituza has covered this new government for several years.
What these people are actually doing is rebuilding themselves, starting from scratch after decades of repression by the Assad regime. So literally from day one, since 2012, since they liberated their territories, they are in the process of reconstructing civil society, integrating different components in the region, not just Kurds, it's Arabs, Armenians, Syriacs.
During the war to defeat ISIS, the autonomous administration partnered with the U.S. and allied forces.
They are more similar in human rights to what we believe in the West, and critically, they have freedom of religion and belief and an overrepresentation of religious minorities. So what's happened is they stand in direct opposition to these jihadi Islamist groups, HTS and SNA. And so today we are seeing the SNA is being used as the militia to break down and attack Northeast Syria.
The autonomous administration fears the Turkish government of President Erdogan, who has stated his intention to defeat the Kurds of Northeast Syria. Given the attacks by Turkish-backed forces and Erdogan's threats, the people of Northeast Syria are calling out to the U.S., the West, and the Christian world for help.
We call on all the Christians in the world to call their nations and brothers and sisters in their administration to make the Christian, the Kurds and Druze and all the minorities to be able to protect themselves from these kind of atrocities.
Gabriel says Northeast Syria is not asking for foreign troops, but for the resources to defend themselves.
Especially the Trump administration and the Israeli government to make this happen, because Christians all over Syria, Christians all over Lebanon, all over Iraq, they want to survive.
Heading believes it's important to pray for this fledgling Middle East democracy.
Because in this area, you have people who can believe whatever they want. Christians, Yazidis, even Muslim background believers who have come to faith in Jesus are able to practice their religion in this area. So pray for Northeast Syria, that it'll remain stable and that the international community would stand and back Northeast Syria against these Islamist jihadis.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
There are still a lot of questions, and I think we ought to pay attention to what the Christian community in Syria is telling us, and they're telling us quite clearly they don't feel safe, and they are leaving. And just imagine being through the horrors of this civil war, going through all of that, and then in the aftermath saying, well, I'm not safe anymore. Well, that tells you there's a whole nother level coming. We've seen what ISIS did to Christian communities in Iraq, and you know, is that going to happen in Syria? Well, the Christians are thinking, yes, indeed, it will. And then you look at what's happening in a Kurdish region in the north of Syria, literally being annexed by Turkey, Turkey supplying all the military force there, all the money for it. And yes, it is time for us to all be alarmed. I know Turkey wants to reestablish the Ottoman Empire. They've declared that. That ought to get everyone's attention. Turkey is a NATO country, and if they get expansionist and say, well, we're now going to annex Syria because of all of the unrest and uncertainty, we need to bring order to that, and by the way, we're going to take it. Well, now they have a direct route into Israel, and Erdogan has said, yes, I want Israel too. But so has the current group. ISIS was quite clear. First, we're going to be Damascus, and next, we're going to be Jerusalem. And pay attention to it, and pay attention to the symbolism. They made this announcement of the takeover in a mosque. They didn't make it at the presidential palace, and they didn't make it at the seat of government. They made it at the seat of the religion, and they did it at a mosque. That is important, and let's pay attention to it. The Christians on the ground in Syria certainly are, and they ought to tell us what we need to do now.